Admiral Vextar stared at the glowing red boundary surrounding the Sol system, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. The holographic display stretched across the entire wall of the council chamber, showing warning beacons that had been broadcasting the same message for 500 years. Quarantine zone, and no entry by order of Galactic Council. Tell them about the humans, he said quietly to Elder Counselor Thane. The ancient being's crystalline form shifted, light refracting through his translucent body as memories surfaced. Thane had been there during the human wars. He had seen what these creatures could do. The humans, Thane began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber, were not like us. When we first encountered them, we thought they were just another primitive species. They had barely left their home planet. Their weapons were crude. Their ships were slow. We expected them to bow down like all the others. A younger delegate, barely past his first molting, raised a tentacle. But surely they were no match for the combined might of the galaxy? Thane's form darkened. That is what we thought. The Zephyrian Empire attacked first. They had conquered 40 systems. They sent their best fleet to Earth, expecting quick surrender. The chamber fell silent as Thane continued. The humans lost that first battle. Badly. Half their ships destroyed, their orbital stations burning. Any other species would have surrendered. The humans? They studied every weapon that hit them. They analyzed every tactic used against them. Within 6 months, they had rebuilt their fleet with improvements. Vextar nodded grimly. Show them the battle records. The holographic display changed, showing ancient footage of human ships. They looked different from the sleek vessels other species favored. Angular, brutal, functional. The second battle was different, Thane said. The humans had learned. Their new ships could take hits that would destroy our vessels. Their weapons had been redesigned based on what they had faced. The Zephyrians were shocked. They still won, but barely. And the third battle? Asked another delegate. The humans won. The silence stretched longer this time. But that was not the worst part. Thane continued. Other species, when they win, they celebrate. They become comfortable. The humans? Victory made them hungrier. They want to know who had sent the Zephyrians. They wanted to know who else might attack them. Vextar walked closer to the display. Within 2 years, human ships were appearing in systems across the galaxy. They were not conquering. They were learning, studying our weaknesses, making friends with our enemies. They turned our own tactics against us. The younger delegates shifted uncomfortably. These stories sounded like myths, legends told to scare children. The final war lasted only 6 months, Thane said. Not because the humans were stronger than us, but because they had become us. They knew how we thought, how we fought what we feared. Every battle they had lost had taught them something new. The hologram showed Captain Jake Morrison, a human with gray hair and tired eyes, standing on the bridge of his ship. His final transmission began to play. To the Galactic Council, Morrison said, his voice calm despite the destruction around him. We did not ask for this war. We did not want this war. But you brought it to our home, and we learned from it. We choose isolation over continued conflict, but understand this clearly. We are not disappearing. We are not dying out. We are waiting. The transmission cut to static. What happened next? A delegate whispered. They went home, Vextar said. Every human ship, every human station outside their solar system, abandoned. They pulled back behind their boundaries and went silent. 500 years ago, their last transmission ended. Their ship stopped moving. Nothing has come out of that system since. Thane's form brightened slightly. Many believe they destroyed themselves. Others think they evolved beyond physical form. Some say they built a paradise and decided the galaxy was not worth their time. And you? The young delegate asked. What do you believe? Vextar and Thane exchanged a look that carried centuries of shared knowledge. We believe they kept their promise, Vextar said. They are waiting. The red boundary on the hologram pulsed steadily, marking a quarantine that had never been broken. Around the chamber, delegates from dozens of species stared at the simple warning beacons, suddenly understanding why the most powerful military force in the galaxy had agreed to leave one small system completely alone. Outside the Sol system, space remained as quiet as it had for 5 centuries. But deep in the darkness between planets, automated sensors continued their endless watch, recording everything that passed by, learning about every ship, every weapon, every species that had joined the galaxy since the humans had gone silent. The galaxy had moved on, but something was still waiting in the dark. General Blake Webb stood in the observation deck of Europa Station, watching the massive alien fleet drift closer through the darkness of space. 47 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had built during the old wars. Their hulls gleamed with weapon ports and energy shields that could probably turn a moon into dust. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures," Lieutenant Kate Morgan said from her console. "Those ships are loaded with plasma cannons and quantum disruptors, the kind that can crack planets." Webb nodded slowly, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. He had been expecting this day for 20 years, ever since he took command of the Sol Defense Network. His grandfather had fought in the human wars. His father had helped design the quarantine protocols. Now it was his turn. Should we power up the defense satellites? Morgan asked, her voice tight with worry. "Not yet," Webb said calmly. "Let them get closer. I want to see what they're really made of." 3,000 light years away, Admiral Krovac of the Kethmoran Empire paced the bridge of his flagship, the World Breaker. His species stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick armor plating that had evolved over millions of years on a high-gravity world. They were born warriors, and they had proven it by conquering 12 solar systems in the past century. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we are approaching the human quarantine boundary. The Galactic Council has sent another warning transmission." Krovac snorted, a sound like grinding metal. "The Council grows weak with age. They cower behind ancient fears and call it wisdom. What could these humans possibly do that we have not already faced?" The truth was, most species in the galaxy had forgotten what humans were really like. The Kethmorans had joined the galactic community only 200 years ago, long after the human wars had ended. To them, the quarantine around Sol system was just another example of the Council's outdated thinking. "The records show humans were defeated in most of their battles," the tactical officer continued. "Their technology was primitive. Their ships were small. How dangerous could they be?" Krovac's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered laughter. "Exactly. The Council sees ghosts where there are only shadows. Today, we claim the Sol system for the Empire. Let the galaxy see what real strength looks like." Back on Europa, Webb watched as the alien fleet crossed the outer boundary markers. Ancient warning beacons that had been broadcasting for 5 centuries suddenly went silent. The quarantine was broken. "Sir," Morgan said, her voice barely above a whisper, "they just crossed a line. They're not stopping." "I can see that," Webb replied. He walked over to a sealed cabinet mounted on the wall and placed his palm against the scanner. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Inside the cabinet was a single red button and a communication device that looked older than everything else in the room. Webb had never used it before. Neither had his father. But they had all known this day would come. The first plasma blast struck the Mars colonies without warning. The mining stations on Phobos vanished in balls of superheated gas. Then the research facilities on Europa's surface erupted in flames as quantum disruptors tore through their shields like they were made of paper. "They're targeting civilians," Morgan gasped, watching destruction on her screens. "The mining families, the research teams. They're not even trying to take prisoners." Webb's expression hardened. For 500 years, humanity had kept its promise to the Galactic Council. They had stayed quiet, stayed isolated, caused no trouble. But the one thing they had made clear from the beginning was simple. Touch our people, and all bets are off. "Kate," he said quietly, "send the emergency signal to all stations. Protocol 7. Morgan's hands froze over her controls. Protocol 7 was something she had trained for but never expected to use. "Sir, are you sure? Once we send that signal, there's no going back." "They fired first," Webb said, pressing the red button in the cabinet. "They chose this." Deep beneath Luna's surface, Automated systems that had been dormant for centuries suddenly roared to life. Across the asteroid belt, hidden facilities began powering up massive engines. On Earth itself, in underground bunkers that most humans have forgotten existed, emergency broadcasts started playing. The message was simple and had been recorded 500 years ago by the last human commander to leave the galactic stage. The Sol system is under attack. All defense protocols are now active. This is not a drill. The galaxy chose to wake us up. Now, they get to see what we learned while we were sleeping. Webb smiled grimly as energy readings across the solar system spiked beyond anything the sensors could measure. Now they've done it, Kate. Send the activation codes. Sir, wake everyone up. Deep beneath Luna's surface, Commander Alex Bradley felt the gentle hum of the awakening protocol vibrating through the metal floors. He had been in rotating shift for 23 years, part of a program that kept humans ready for this exact moment. His father had done the same duty. So had his grandfather. The underground city stretched for miles in every direction, carved from solid rock and powered by fusion reactors that had been running silently for 5 centuries. As Bradley walked through the corridors, he saw thousands of people emerging from their quarters, all moving with the calm efficiency of those who had trained for this their entire lives. Status report, he called to the second-in-command as they entered the main operations center. All systems online, sir, replied Captain Lisa Chun, checking her displays. The shipyards have been building continuously for 500 years. The automated factories never stop working. We have over 3,000 vessels ready for deployment. Bradley nodded, watching as massive screens showed the Sol system coming alive. Hidden bases on asteroids were powering up. Weapon platforms disguised as space debris were activating. The mining operations that everyone thought were abandoned were revealing themselves to be military installations. The Kethmarans have no idea what they've walked into, Chin said quietly. That's the point, Bradley replied. Our ancestors wanted the galaxy to forget about us. They wanted everyone to think we had disappeared or died out, but we never stopped preparing. Above them, Admiral Rebecca Carter was already aboard the Retribution, humanity's newest class of warship. The ship was nothing like the vessels humans had used during the old wars. Those had been built for exploration and adapted for fighting. This ship was built for one purpose only, to make sure no one ever attacked human civilians again. Captain Reynolds, bring us to full power, Carter ordered as she settled into command chair. Yes, ma'am, replied Captain David Reynolds, her tactical officer. All systems are green. Weapons charged. Stealth fields ready. Carter looked around at her crew of 2,000. They were young, most in their 20s and 30s, but they came from families who had been preparing for this day for generations. Their great-great-grandparents had fought in the human wars. Their parents had helped design these ships. They had grown up knowing that someday, someone would be foolish enough to test humanity again. Open a channel to the unknown fleet, Carter said. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Carter's voice carried across space, calm and professional. Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Carter of the Human Defense Fleet. You have violated the sole quarantine established by Galactic Council Treaty 2847. You have attacked civilian installations and killed non-combatants. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender, or we will respond with appropriate force. On the bridge of the World Breaker, Admiral Krovac listened to the transmission and began laughing. The sound echoed through his ship's corridors, picked up by his crew, who joined in the amusement. One ship, he said between laughs. They send one small ship to threaten my entire fleet. These humans truly are as weak as I thought. His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings. Sir, that ship is not showing up on our deep scans. I can see it, but I cannot get detailed readings on its capabilities. It does not matter, Krovac replied. 47 ships against one. Even if it is their most advanced vessel, the mathematics are simple. But the laughter died in his throat when space around his fleet suddenly filled with ships. First 10 appeared, then 20, then 50. Their stealth systems disengaged one by one, revealing vessels that seemed to materialize from nothing. The humans had been hiding in plain sight, using technology that made them invisible to every sensor the Kethmorans possessed. "Sir," his tactical officer said, his voice now shaking, "I count over 100 ships, and more are still appearing." Krovac stared at his displays in disbelief. Each human ship was smaller than his vessels, but they moved with precision that spoke of advanced technology. Their formations were perfect. Their energy signatures showed power levels that should have been impossible for ships their size. "How?" he whispered. "The records said they were primitive. They said human technology was centuries behind the rest of the galaxy." Admiral Carter's voice came over the communications channel again, still calm, but with an edge that cut through the vacuum of space. "Time's up," she said simply. The human fleet began to move, and Krovac realized he was seeing the result of 500 years of focused preparation. While the galaxy had moved on, assuming humanity was gone or irrelevant, they had been building, learning, preparing for the day when someone would force them to break their isolation. Carter stood on her bridge, surrounded by displays showing tactical information that would have seemed like magic to the species humanity had fought centuries ago. Her crew worked with the smooth efficiency of people who had practiced these maneuvers thousands of times. "Reynolds," she said quietly, "show them what 5 centuries of human engineering can do." "With pleasure, Admiral." The Retribution and her sister ships moved forward, and the Kethmoran Empire was about to learn why the Galactic Council had been so afraid of waking up humanity. The galaxy had forgotten what humans were capable of when someone threatened their families. They were about to be reminded. Captain Ryan Thompson gripped the command rail as his flagship, the Vengeance, slipped between dimensions like a ghost walking through walls. Around him, the third human fleet moved through space in ways that defied everything the galaxy thought they knew about physics. "Sir, we're approaching the Kethmoran border systems," reported his navigation officer. "Their defense fleets are scrambling to intercept us." Thompson studied the tactical display. The Kethmorans had impressive numbers, over 200 warships spread across their outer colonies. But they were thinking in old terms, expecting human ships to behave like normal vessels bound by the limits of conventional space travel. "Take us through fold space," Thompson ordered. "Let's appear behind their main battle line." The human ships vanished from normal space and reappeared 3 million kilometers behind the Kethmoran fleet, emerging from dimensions that most species didn't even know existed. It was technology that humanity had developed during their 5 centuries of isolation, built on theories that their greatest scientists had worked on in complete secrecy. "Unknown human vessels." Came a frantic transmission from the Kethmoran admiral. "How did you move through our sensor grid without detection?" Thompson opened the communication channel. His voice was calm, professional, but carried an edge that made even his own crew stand straighter. "Attention, Kethmoran forces. You attacked our civilians without provocation. You broke a treaty that had kept peace in the galaxy for 500 years. Now you face the consequences." He turned to his weapons officer. "Military targets only. Remember what Admiral Carter taught us. We're not conquerors seeking territory. We're exterminators removing a threat." The human ships opened fire with weapons that adapted and evolved during the battle itself. Each shot that missed was analyzed by the ship's computers, which immediately adjusted the targeting systems for the next volley. Within minutes, the human weapons were hitting targets with perfect accuracy, while the Kethmoran return fire seemed to pass harmlessly through empty space. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "their ships are trying to retreat to fold space." "Jam their dimensional drives," Thompson replied. "No one leaves until we're finished here." The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, every Kethmoran military vessel was either destroyed or drifting powerless in space. The human fleet had not lost a single ship. Meanwhile, on the surface of Kethmoran Prime, Lieutenant Colonel Ashley Barnes coordinated the most precise military operation in galactic history. Her soldiers moved through the planet's capital city like shadows, using armor that shifted its appearance to blend with surroundings and weapons that learned from every engagement. "Team Alpha, report." Barnes spoke into her helmet comm. "Military Command Center secured." Came the reply, "No civilian casualties. All enemy personnel have surrendered or been neutralized." "Team Beta?" "Weapons manufacturing complex is offline." We've disabled their production capabilities without harming the factory workers. Barnes watched her tactical display as dozens of similar reports came in from across the planet. Her soldiers were not rampaging through cities or terrorizing populations. They were surgically removing every piece of military infrastructure that could threaten human lives, while leaving everything else untouched. Colonel, one of her squad leaders, reported, "We've found their central military database. It contains the locations of every Kethmoran military installation in their empire. Copy that information and transmit it to Fleet Command." Barnes replied. "Then destroy the servers. We want them defenseless, not extinct." The Kethmoran civilians watched in stunned silence as human soldiers moved through their cities with mechanical precision. These were not the savage conquerors their leaders had promised to defeat. These were professional exterminators, removing military threats with the same methodical approach a surgeon might use to remove cancer. Within 3 months, the Third Fleet had visited every Kethmoran military installation in 12 solar systems. They arrived without warning, disabled or destroyed everything that could be used for war, and left just as quickly. No civilians were harmed. No territories were claimed. The humans simply removed the Kethmoran Empire's ability to threaten anyone ever again. "Sir," Thompson's communications officer reported as they finished their work at the last Kethmoran naval base, "we're receiving a surrender offer from their high command." "Tell them it's too late for surrender," Thompson replied. "We're not here to accept their submission. We're here to make sure this never happens again." By the end of 6 months, the mighty Kethmoran Empire still existed, but as a purely civilian society. Every warship had been destroyed or disabled. Every weapons factory had been shut down. Every military academy had been converted to civilian use. The humans had not conquered the Empire. They had simply removed its ability to wage war. Back in the Sol system, General Blake Webb stood before a galactic communication array, preparing to address the Galactic Council. The message would be broadcast to every species in known space, carried by quantum relays to the furthest corners of the galaxy, to the Galactic Council and all member species. Webb began, his voice carrying the weight of 5 centuries of human patience finally exhausted. For 500 years, humanity honored the quarantine agreement. We stayed in our system. We caused no trouble. We asked for nothing. He paused, letting the words sink in. The Kethmoran Empire chose to break that peace. They attacked our civilians. They killed our people. Now they have learned what happens when someone forces humanity to act. Webb looked directly into the camera, knowing that his words would be heard by billions of beings across the galaxy. Let the fate of the Kethmoran serve as a lesson to everyone. We did not conquer them because we are not conquerors. We dismantled their military because we will not tolerate threats to human life. The next time someone decides to test humanity's resolve, remember what you have witnessed here. There will not be a warning. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate a truth they have forgotten. Humanity was never gone. They were just waiting for someone to give them a reason to act. President Helen Foster walked into the Galactic Council chamber with the confidence of someone who held all the cards. The massive circular room had been designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant, with towering columns and alien architecture that spoke of ancient power. Today, it felt different. Today, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were the ones looking nervous. Behind her walked Admiral Rebecca Carter, still wearing the uniform she had worn during the Kethmoran campaign. Beside her, General Alex Bradley carried himself with the quiet authority of a man who had just proven that humanity's 500-year isolation had been time well spent. The assembled delegates represented dozens of species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The crystalline Thane, the gas-form ethereals, the massive stone-like titans, beings whose civilizations were ancient when humans were still discovering fire. All of them were watching the 3 humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Honored Council," Foster began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "Humanity has come to discuss our future relationship with the galactic community." Elder Counselor Thane's crystalline form shifted, light refracting through his ancient body. "The quarantine treaty was your idea, President Foster. You requested isolation. Why do you now seek to rejoin galactic society? Foster smiled, and several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had all seen the reports from Kethmoran space. They knew what that smile meant. Because the galaxy has changed, Counselor Thane. When we accepted isolation 5 centuries ago, it was to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. We hoped that our absence would bring peace. And for the most part, it did. She gestured to the holographic display that materialized in the center of the chamber. It showed the current galactic map, with trade routes, political boundaries, and military installations clearly marked. But isolation is no longer an option, Foster continued. The Kethmoran attack proved that someone will always be willing to test boundaries. Someone will always believe that humanity's absence means weakness rather than choice. Admiral Carter stepped forward. Our fleets are currently positioned at strategic points throughout the galaxy, not as an invasion force, but as a reminder. We have the capability to reach any system within days. We have weapons that can disable entire fleets without destroying them. We have technology that most species didn't even know was possible. A delegate from the Zephyrian Empire, the same species that had first attacked Earth centuries ago, raised a tentacle nervously. Are you threatening us? General Bradley answered, his voice calm but firm. We're explaining reality. Humanity spent 500 years developing technology and strategies for one purpose: to ensure that what happened to our colonies never happens again. We can defend ourselves. The question is whether the galaxy wants us as partners or as watchful neighbors. Foster walked closer to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Humanity requests a permanent seat on this council, not as junior members seeking guidance, and not as equals sharing power. We want to be partners in maintaining galactic peace. The implications were clear. Humanity wasn't asking for permission. They were offering the council a choice. And if we refuse this partnership? Asked Elder Counselor Thane, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Foster's smile widened slightly. Behind her, the holographic display changed, showing human fleet positions in real time. Ships appeared near every major system, every important trade route, every significant military installation. They weren't threatening anyone, but they were definitely visible. Then the galaxy learns what happens when you back into a corner a species that spent 5 centuries preparing for war instead of fighting one. Foster said quietly, we didn't spend our isolation years growing weak or philosophical. We spent them becoming something the galaxy has never seen before, a species completely dedicated to ensuring our survival. Admiral Carter added, every battle we lost in the old wars taught us something. Every defeat became a lesson plan. Every dead colony became motivation to build better defenses. We didn't just prepare for the next Kethmoran Empire. We prepared for every possible threat. The chamber fell silent as the council delegates absorbed what they were hearing. The humans weren't offering conquest or demanding submission. They were simply making it clear that the old rules no longer applied. General Bradley spoke next, his words carrying the weight of recent experience. The Kethmoran Empire thought they could test us because we had been quiet for so long. They learned that human silence doesn't mean human weakness. It means human patience. And our patience has limits. Foster looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each delegate. We can work together to keep the peace, or you can go back to pretending we don't exist while we watch everything you do. Either way, humanity will never again allow civilians to be attacked simply because someone thinks we're too weak to respond. The vote, when it came, was unanimous, not because the council members particularly wanted humanity as partners, but because they understood what the alternative would mean. As the session ended and the delegates filed out, Elder Counselor Thane approached Foster. You have changed, he said quietly. The humans who accepted isolation were seekers of peace. We still are, Foster replied. The difference is that now we're strong enough to enforce it. Humanity had returned to galactic politics, not as the curious explorers they had been 5 centuries ago, but as something far more dangerous, a species that had learned from every mistake, prepared for every possibility, and made peace their highest priority. The galaxy's new rule remained simple: don't wake the humans. The difference was that now everyone understood exactly why.